What's up, good people? What's up, good people? In partnership with WYTV7 Christian Broadcasting Network, this is When Men Open Up, a show where we are redefining manhood through transparency. And the topic for today,
Yes.
anger, the only emotion I know.
The only one I know.
Anger, the only emotion I know. So, Dex, when it come down to masculinity, our understanding of masculinity, our understanding of manhood, is just something about anger.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go too deep into it because I want people to understand why we chose this topic, what really inspired us to really go over this topic. But I think anger, when it comes down to men, I think that's one of the biggest areas that's really hindering us in many areas in our lives.
Definitely. There's so much to be said in that area. One of the things I know that you and I both have caught a lot of flack from concerning, this episode, not only this episode, but this podcast. People say, man, men talk about emotions. I want to talk about emotions. And the reality is that, we're not trying to be over emotional. I don't think that was never the premise of our show. But mainly we've always been proponents of balance, right. Men being balanced. And I think one of the sad narratives is, as men, we've been indoctrinated to believe that it is a sign of weakness to express feelings and emotions. The only emotion and feeling that is equated as being a masculine trait is oftentimes anger and aggression. And so we, as a result of that, we often have a tendency to be overly angry, overly aggressive. Yeah. And one of the sad narratives about that is that can be a very dangerous way to carry yourself. We'll talk about it, I think a little bit more at length in this particular show. But, I'm not saying that anger is wrong. Anger right. is actually a natural emotion. But the issue is that if it's the only thing that you know how to rely upon, you definitely going to have to get that checked.
Most definitely. And I'm glad you went over that because we don't want people to get it the wrong way. And we don't want people to think that we're beating up on anybody or a group of people, men. But anger is a normal emotion. Mm-hmm. It's just when it comes down to our views of masculinity, the society views of masculinity, it's just anger is just something that's just acceptable. Yeah. It's just something it makes more sense for us to be angry. And really everybody experiences anger. But this is the thing we really want to dive into so many different areas in anger. And I won't be surprised we're going to have some more episodes on anger because definitely. we got to really take people there. But anger can really be a clue to many things. It can really give you more understanding to a lot of things, depending on how we view it. Are we willing to dive deeper to understanding where is the anger stemming from? Exactly. Because it ain't just about, okay, that person is angry or that person just have anger issues. There's something influencing that. And when we can really get to the bottom of the things that's really causing the anger, then you'll really understand that it's not just the person is angry. It may be because the person lacks patience in a certain area. And sometimes when we lack patience, or really majority of the time when we lack patience, we are less willing to gain more understanding in the situation that we're currently in. And usually when we have anger, or when anger arises, there's usually a lack of understanding. And another thing is we always expressed it, fear. Yeah. It's fear of losing out on something. It's the fear of something being exposed in us. It's the fear of us being vulnerable. It's the fear of our understanding of masculinity being threatened. And when our masculinity is being threatened, we don't want nothing part of that.
Man, talk about it. Listen, you and I have had this conversation before, and for a few of you, you may actually know this, but at one point in time in my life, I was a chaplain, and one of the exercises that we used to conduct was called a check-in. on this check-in, it was about 8 of us. We would gather at a circle, and the whole premise of it was to let people know how you were feeling.
Right.
That was the hardest exercise that I have ever conducted in my life, and at the time I was, young 30s or something like that. And I would always say, hey, I'm Dexter, I'm checking in, and I feel cool. They'd be like, Dexter, that's not an emotion. Mm-hmm. I was like, well, I feel okay. Dexter, that's not an emotion, And the issue is that it was so hard for me to convey how I felt, Now, I can tell you when I got mad. I can tell you, hey, listen, I'm angry right now. This has got me frustrated. That was on the spot. Yeah. But a lot of times I could not tell you anything else. What I learned in that season, in that time of working in that industry is that a lot of times what I was calling anger and frustration was actually not even anger.
Right.
It was actually something else. It was disappointment, or it was resentment, or it was bitterness. But my thing is that the only thing I knew in my wheelhouse was anger. Mm-hmm. And like you said, it was rooted in fear. A lot of times anger is rooted in fear. What I understood is that I did not know how to be transparent. I did not know what that was going to look like. Yeah. And so what I was beginning to experience was this anxiety about talking about feelings, and it was causing me to get angry. Right. Because I'm talking about being transparent to a group of people that, I wasn't really invested in at the time emotionally. I didn't want you to know my stuff, and you're asking me to share my stuff. Yeah. And so it was causing me to get angry, but the root of it was fear about being vulnerable to a group of people who I did not know how they were going to respond. I wasn't in control of their response. And so that was the root of my anger. But once again, if I drill it down, it was fear.
Exactly. And to add on to that fear gave value in their thoughts and opinions about you as well.
Exactly.
And that can really throw us off in so many different areas. But anger, it really helps when we can really take time out and learn how to verbalize what we're really feeling. Yeah. And maybe sometimes we have to it may sound crazy, but actually have exercises to where we really taking time out and really describing how I'm feeling right now, and because with anger, it can really get in the way of developing relationships, maintaining relationships, our relationships actually growing. And that anger, it causes a lot of confusion. It causes a lot of chaos. And to other people, like we said before, all they're seeing is the outrage, but they don't know what's really going on internally. And because we weren't taught how to actually verbalize, how to verbalize our feelings, that can cause that frustration as well. I think it's really important if we have sons and daughters as well, but just for the sake of the topic, if we have sons, really take time out and show them how to verbalize what they're really feeling. Yeah. And are they verbalizing thoughts? Are they verbalizing feelings? And that's going to really help them out in a lot of relationships, to be quite honest, and really connecting with women as well. I think a lot of our women, they just see anger. But when you look at a lot of research, especially when it comes down to Black men, our depression, the way we show depression and sadness is it looks like anger. Exactly. So many of us, we look mad and we look angry, but we're actually sad inside. So it's really affecting all the people around us, because they're really addressing the wrong thing. They're addressing what they're seeing, and they're not really addressing what's really inside. But at the end of the day, it's not just on them. It helps. It's not just on them, but it's on us to really understand that as well.
And I'm glad you said that. Sometimes it's sadness, sometimes it's other things going on in our young people, and we misidentify. One of the things that I in preparing for this particular talk tonight, I was thinking about when I was growing up and how I would act out. And the reality is that I needed an outlet, but I didn't know how to express what I was feeling. Yeah. and I'm talking about 13, 14, 15 years of age, already lacking the ability to express what I was feeling. But I knew I had to get it out. So oftentimes it would come out. I would fight, and it would come out other ways. You know what I'm saying? And the reality is that I understood whatever it was, I needed to get it out.
Right.
But I didn't have the ability and the know-how to in a healthy fashion get it off of me. And so we're doing, people that we care about a huge disservice by not really having these dialogues, having these conversations. One of the things you and I the question we hear is, how do I make myself available for the man in my life? We hear that from a lot of the women who follow our show. And the reality is that whenever the man does open up to you, you have to allow him to do it in a fashion that is comfortable for him. Because a lot of, as I mentioned, I was in my 30s having a dialogue about feelings, and I did not know how to have that talk.
Most definitely.
And so, we have men in 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and older who, for the majority of their life, have lacked the ability to talk about feelings and emotions. And so much of what you see looks like anger, but the reality is something else.
Yeah, and that's good. And those of you that's watching and listening to the broadcast, please take some time out to share the broadcast. And, like someone just stated, we're taught to suppress it.
Yeah.
So that's why we do need, and we're not saying, we want to make it clear, we're not saying that women should just put up with anything. Mm-hmm. So there's no telling how his way of actually expressing itself. Yeah. But we're not saying to put up with anything, but to really take some time out and have some more patience and allowing him to really express himself the way he knows how to, because he probably wasn't equipped. And many of us, we are taught to suppress it and hold it to ourselves. And the problem with that is when we hold it in, eventually it's going to come out. Yeah. And we just get accustomed to that. We just get used to that. And many of us, we just need to get in the habit. And I'm doing that with some of my brothers as well. Just get in the habit of really opening up. Really just taking time out where we're not talking about the podcast. We're not talking about business. We're really taking time out to allow each other to be vulnerable. And we are making them feel comfortable doing it. Mm-hmm. So if we're gonna open up to each other, we can't make it difficult. We're gonna open up to each other. We have to give that invitation. We're going to open up to each other. We can't go telling so-and-so what so-and-so said. We have to really help each other out. Help me, help you. We have to help each other out. We're feeling comfortable. We're really opening up, because when we finally get it as men, I'm a firm believer that when we finally get it as men to really start opening up and being transparent with each other, it's so many things that's going to start arising. There's so many problems that we're going to finally start being able to address. It's so many deep-rooted things that we're going to finally be able to attack once we are able to open up to one another as men, because that's the biggest thing. And bruh, that's the main reason why we named it When Men Open Up, because of that treasure chest that opens. It's just something about those of you that know the logo and see the logo, the treasure chest opening up, and it's so much value that's really being able to spew out that can really which will help so many things transpire. Which will really help us really get down to those deep-rooted problems and those issues that we've been dealing with for so long.
Yeah, I mean, because even in that aspect, one of the things that we've talked about is that when men come in right position, and we're not just talking about physically, but emotionally and mentally, we'll start to see real changes in society, in our households, in our world. And so this is so critical. One of the things that I have the privilege of doing is I do a lot of work in the in the prison system. And in the prison system, we're working on life skills. We're having these dialogues. And, one of the most profound things that I've heard from a number of men is that in a fit of rage, they made the wrong decision, and that decision landed them in prison. Yeah. And that's the critical thing about anger. I believe it's maybe in Ephesians, the Bible says, be angry, but sin not. See, it's okay to be angry, but now you come to a point where there's a decision that needs to be made.
Yeah.
You know, what happens beyond the point of anger? As we said earlier, that anger is not necessarily a bad thing. It's a part of life. But what you do from a place of anger really opens the door for, negative set of consequences or positive consequences. I'll be honest, sometimes for myself, anger is, or frustration, that is evidence that I need to make a decision. Right. That's not always the way, but that's one of the ways that I determine that I need to make a decision about something. You and I were having this conversation before, and I was telling you that I feel, right now that I'm at a critical point in my life where I need to pass a test that I failed before. Mm-hmm. And what I was saying is that, emotionally, I'm noticing some things going on in myself that I was experiencing several years ago. And several years ago, I allowed myself to get disappointed about a situation. That disappointment led to resentment, and then that resentment led to bitterness. And see, I didn't know that at the time because I wasn't equipped to really understand the emotions.
Right.
So what it was is at the time I was angry, I made the wrong decision.
Right. And
from the wrong decision, it led to, a negative set of consequences. And so here it is, fast forward some 5, 6 years later, I'm looking at a situation that's going on that reminds me of what happened in the past. Mm-hmm. And I'm saying, okay, you're going to have to check this because if you don't check this, if you don't handle this the right way, you're going to derail what it is that you're working towards.
Most definitely. And to add on to that, it also says, don't go to bed angry as well.
Yeah, with your wrath.
Yep. Exactly. And what that's basically saying is you don't want to stay in that state for that period of time. So once again, it is a normal emotion. We want people to really understand that. But when you stay in that, you're vulnerable.
Exactly.
You're vulnerable to making any decision. When we see people that's mad and they're raging, we'll say, you know what, stay back. We're saying stay back because that person's likely to do anything. So that's just something to really take note. But the question is, how else does it really affect us? It really affects us in how we handle problems as well. I really do believe men and women, but I want to put majority of focus on the men. We're supposed to be problem solvers. Yeah. And if we're always angry when problems arise and when things are just not going our way, who can really rely on us? I believe as men, people should be able to rely on us to when there's problems. They should be able to run to us when there's a problem that needs to be resolved. Yeah. So oftentimes a lot of men, I see that they'll run. They'll run or they'll black out. They get so angry or the rage is so heightened that they'll literally black out. That's very intense. Yeah. I think another thing is we'll use that to intimidate people. And intimidation is a form of manipulation.
Exactly.
And we'll use that to get our way with other people because with our view of masculinity, we have to poke our chest out in order to get what we really want. I think another thing is, again, it brings misunderstanding. So when you are angry, keep in mind that it is something deeper than that. And people are just seeing the rage. They're just seeing that emotion, that is external emotion, and they're not necessarily seeing what's actually going on. So it's so many different ways where anger can really affect us, but not just us, but the people around us.
Oh, definitely. I'll say this. One of the things I noticed about myself, and I've had the opportunity to really kind of get better on this, but I become very narrow-minded, meaning that I can't see big picture when I get beyond angry. Right. When I hit that angry, it's hard for me to see big picture. It's very narrow-minded in my focus. And a lot of times the focus is on alleviating the thing that made me angry.
Exactly.
It's not even really about creating a ongoing solution. It's about remedying whatever it is that has me angry in that moment. And so, one of the things that I would encourage you all is just to be aware. Self-awareness is huge, and be aware about the things that you know is going on inside of yourself. Ask yourself, is it really helping you to be beneficial in every facet of life? And I say this, having lived, almost 40 years now, but a lot of this has come by way of making a lot of mistakes,
right.
And so in making those mistakes, I had the opportunity to learn from them and say, hey, Dexter, you need to clean up your process, man. When you feel yourself going there, nothing good comes from that.
Right.
Very, very rarely does something good come from that place. And so that's my opportunity to take a step back, give myself a minute, and then re-engage whatever was going on.
Man, that's so good. That's how you get past it.
Yeah.
And we want people to understand that this is something that doesn't just take a few hours or a few days or a few weeks or whatever the case may be. It is a process. And like he stated, we can't work on anything until we recognize it.
Yeah.
We have to recognize it, and we have to admit it that is something. But I really want people to have the right mindset when we talk about anger, because sometimes when we talk about anger, we're talking about extreme anger.
Yeah.
But again, we all experience anger in some level, some form of fashion. But the thing is, the anger is really showing you something about yourself. And it's really showing you how, what you actually feel, how you value how people think about you and so forth, the things that really disappoint you and frustrate you and so forth. So instead of looking at it in such a negative way, really just take time out and really understand what is really stemming from that. There's something that's really causing that anger. And when we can really attack this anger, the growth is beyond measures. It's incredible when we can really take time out and really just think for a minute, why did I allow this person to make me so angry? Why did I really just go off during this situation? And it's something. And when we can really get to the maturity and the consciousness and have the awareness to really catch it, that point when you do get angry, but you catch it like, hold up, I've realized that I'm really up there. Man, that's powerful.
It is, and so it sounds like, what you're sharing and what we've been talking about really is, once again, you have to be able to self-evaluate, because once again, anger is not always bad, but you have to know what is triggering you in that moment.
Right.
A lot of times we just kind of settle in that anger and fester in it, and we're just like, well, we're gonna do what we got to do.
Exactly.
But you have to be self-aware and ask yourself, what got me to this moment? What about this situation has me feeling this way? And then from that recognition of, yes, I am angry, but I'm still responsible for my decision. Once again, I determine what do I want to do with this anger. And so if you can do that, I think you will find yourself really ahead of the power curve. I really think that you'll start to notice some very significant changes in your life. One of the things I also believe is that the things that used to get you angry probably won't have the same impact anymore, because now you'll know how to handle it, and that's huge, especially when you find yourself in a position where you have people depending upon you. Listen, you don't want people scared to come around you because they don't know how you're going to act. If you're Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, once again, we have to we have to find some balance, and that's huge. As men, we really have to get to the place where, once again, we're not totally depending upon one emotion, and that emotion solely being anger. We have to find that balance in life.
Most definitely. And it falls in line with our last episode, peace.
Yeah.
When we have that self-awareness, especially when it comes down to anger, I believe we can have some more peace in our lives as well. I really enjoyed this topic. Is there anything else you wanted to share with the people?
Listen, we greatly appreciate you all joining us every week. The following is growing, and we would appreciate, if you have any questions, feel free. A lot of our topics actually stem from questions that we received during the week. We try to, change up some names and situations so the people don't think that we're specifically speaking about them, but we are really on a mission to help men. help men find that balance, address the issues that we often deal with in silence.
Right.
A lot of us are, just going through life, once again, unable to express what we're dealing with because we don't feel like there's a safe outlet. And so this show has been designed to create that outlet, to speak about these issues in total transparency, as a means to help those who are struggling with these issues. So we thank you all for just being with us week after week, for continuing to spread the word, and we ask that you continue to do so.
Most definitely. If you have any other questions, any concerns, any feedback, feel free to inbox us on our Facebook, Instagram page. Email us whenmenopenup@gmail.com. And a lot of people have been asking, hey, do y'all do programs, speaking engagements, conferences? You're more than welcome to inbox us anything.
Yes.
If you need us to come in and do a panel discussion, speak at your event, or whatever the case may be, or know that there's something else that's coming up you think that will be a great part to participate in, feel free to inbox us. Feel free to email us at whenmenopenup@gmail.com. And if you have any if you want to advertise anything, have any services, any products that you want to promote on our show, you're more than welcome to do that as well. That is an option. We're having a lot of people inbox us about that, so you can email us about that. But like I said, if you have any other questions, feel free to get in contact with us, because this show is about you all, it's for you all, and we want to make sure that everything that we speak about and teach on is relevant, because it's about you all. But my name is Dominique.
And I'm Dexter.
And this is When Men Open Up, where we are redefining manhood through transparency. We really appreciate the love, and we are out. Thank you so much.